Thank you. So I'm going to cover some stuff on supply chains. And one of the interesting things, again, about supply chain is there's so much change going on at the moment. And so much of it is actually technology driven. And I think I've been involved in supply chains for close to 30 years now, sort of in multinationals, retailers, manufacturing. And I think the change over the next 10 years is going to be way more dramatic than certainly the change I've seen so far, because of the involvement in the technologies we've actually got coming. And I think the kind of title of this, the fact that supply chains have to be customer obsessed, right, is the fundamental thing. If we don't understand the person we're trying to serve with the supply chain, whether it's the person in Countdown or Foodstuffs actually taking a product off the shelf, or if it's a refugee sitting in a camp getting a feed of rice today. Supply chains range across a very wide range of causes, situations. They're moving simple products, they're moving complex products. So in itself, it's a real beast. If you think about a supermarket, it has on average probably 20 to 25,000 distinct items in that come from some thousands of suppliers that are distributed in multiple different locations around the world. That just having something turn up on your supermarket shelf to be able to purchase is just a miracle at times. Yeah. Right, there's a whole lot of people sitting behind there working extremely hard. We've got some really wonderful metrics called OTIF. Does anybody here actually know what OTIF means? On time, in full. Right, so I've delivered it to the right place and I've given you the full order. There's a close cousin of that, which is on time, in full, to spec. Right, so you're actually going to get what you've actually ordered. And I think there's a step beyond that, is around the customer expectation we're actually delivering as part of that supply chain. That you're able to deliver the right product in the right place at the right time to the right person with the right experience. And you think about that sentence and you think about, how do I actually put all those different ideas together? Well, it becomes very complex, very difficult, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's all based on data. If you don't, your comment around sort of where is the AI getting its data from? Supply chain, fundamentally, if you don't have good data, it doesn't fly. I want to talk to you about one of my very early implementations of an end-to-end ERP, because it's a simple example. We were applying one of the big ERP vendors end-to-end across our company, and this was way back at the beginning of our career, so long time ago. We were putting it in, complex, difficult, change project, everybody's job changes. We put it in and we had some problems, but thanks to a very heroic few, we started getting great data. And one of the things that it showed is what we shipped out of our factories was 12% more than what arrived in our distribution centres. Yeah. And I was kind of like, huh? Where's this going? So we did some digging, got into the data, and it turned out that the delivery from our factory to our distribution centre was where that stock was disappearing. Our transport partner, right, was making an unscheduled stop on the way from the factory to our distribution centre and taking the top layer off the pallets. And then selling them, of course. So we called the cops. We changed the transportation partner for some strange reason, and our sales went up by 12% overnight. Right, it's kind of like, oh, okay, how did we miss that? And it just comes back to the fact we didn't have the data. Right, and that's a very simple example where your domain of knowledge, your domain of collaboration is completely within one organisation. Supply chains today are fragmenting incredibly rapidly because it's much easier to start up as a niche provider. I was dealing with a company called Tamando in Australia, which actually consolidates information about couriers for retailers. So you could actually, and we built a link from our online site to Tamando, and we could give our customers a choice of couriers. right? Which one would you prefer to use to actually deliver your product? And Tamando handled all that magic in the back end as to how they actually arranged that, did the pickup, did the delivery. But that was outsourced. Very niche market, but that's typical to what's happening in the supply chain overall. So data quality and visibility is absolutely critical. I'm hoping you can, yes you can, cool. And there's the two flows that are going on at the same time. There's the data flow, right, from the front end back, from your finished goods to your raw materials or your sourcing. And then there's the product flow going forwards from raw materials to finished goods. This is an example supply chain. If you multiply this by a few thousand times, you've probably got the number of distinct supply chains each part of the business is actually, or even a retailer is actually using. They're managing multiple of these at the same time. And you can see the demand, the data flow, and this is where the customer obsession comes in. Is really understanding what are our customers going to want to buy from us in the future at the time the data flow and the product flow takes to get that product back into the customer's hands. Right, and in some cases that's quite a long time. If you're buying a big good like a car, right, lead time on those is off, if you want something specific, is months. Right, by the time the order gets back, it gets fed into a factory, and then the product actually is manufactured, transported, delivered, you start using it, it's months. So the time frame's very highly. But everything depends on the quality of data you're actually receiving. I think what's interesting at the moment is the impact that IoT is actually having on the quality and the timeliness of data that's actually available within the supply chain. As you're going through the product flow now, there's a lot more sensors and metrics being collected using IoT. Some products, ice cream is a classic example, is very temperature sensitive. But if it goes out outside a certain band, you don't want to be eating it. And so having sensors actually on the containers that are shipping that ice cream is really important to satisfy the consumer at the end, to make sure the quality of the ice cream is good enough. Traditionally, when you're shipping ice cream, you find out that it's bad here.
Ooh, ouch.
Right, so your retailer is unpacking it and discovers this is not usable because it's all melted and yeah, no, we just got to throw it away. And so they end up without a product on their shelves. IoT starts to identify these exceptions much, much earlier. And in fact, in some cases, in a lot of cases, it'll actually identify the temperatures going out of bounds much, much earlier. So they'll be able to identify the container that it's in and actually take action to make sure that product doesn't get ruined. And it allows it to feed through to the consumer. So the customer actually gets that great product that they're actually looking for. But what the IoT is doing is the volume of data that's actually being captured and created and is now feeding back into that data flow is dramatically larger than anything we've dealt with before. And so the scale of information that's now being collected is giving us a whole set of different challenges actually associated with it. And I think there's a really nice example going on. Not completely, not completely.
Is that what happened to my phone?
Let me tell you the story. So around the time COVID hit, demand for cars just died. The car manufacturers, like a lot of other companies, actually had downsized their workforces, shutter factories. There was a massive drop in demand. But at the same time, there was a rapid increase in demand for other devices that actually consumed semiconductors. Right, so computers, webcams, communications devices, all those things that we actually needed to enable remote working, that people started to put into their homes so they could actually communicate more effectively. So semiconductor demand went up dramatically then. What's happening now is the demand for cars is coming back quite quickly, but there are not enough semiconductors available to satisfy the demand for cars that's now happening. So there are a significant number of big car manufacturers who are not able to meet demand because of these little itty bitty devices. And you add on top of that all these, so earthquake in Japan recently, 7.1, there was a semiconductor factory that's been unable to operate for a number of months. There was the freeze in Texas recently, basically shut down all the fabs, so the factories that actually build the semiconductors, for an extended period of time. There's a whole series, and the US has decided to actually ban imports from some of the biggest manufacturers of semiconductors, China, into the States for interesting reasons. And in addition, Taiwan, who's probably the largest single manufacturer, is actually having a significant water crisis at the moment. Right, their normal weather patterns have been interrupted. They didn't get the rainfall, and now the area where the factories are operating in a drought situation, and so they're not able to run at full capacity because there's no water available. And so, semiconductors, cars, computers, they are sort of blenders, toasters. Pretty much anything that runs on electricity today actually uses semiconductors of one kind or another. And so they're all constrained by these crazy weather events, by these interesting political choices. I just want to talk a bit about what changes. It's a fairly traditional model in the sense of people, process, technology and data. But it's interesting how these different areas actually integrate or work together, and how AI actually changes some of the aspects in this model. So if you have a look at the processing technology, the automation, right, AI is increasingly being used to take decisions, manage processes that humans were previously having to be involved with because just computers weren't capable of making the decisions. But AI, with the kind of data, machine learning processes that they have now, we're able to automate a lot more of the process, the knowledge-based processes. But more particularly in the analytics. And so that ability for AI, machine learning, and the other types of AI models that are out there, actually helping people make better decisions. I think the thing that's been most interesting about AIs is that they are best when they're coupled with a person. Chess is really quite fascinating because the grandmasters are now being beaten by computers, but a grandmaster with a computer is beating the computer. So that enhancing a person's capability with AIs and the type of functionality that an AI can do to increase that person's capabilities, their ability to bring information together and synthesize decisions, right, is dramatically improved with the way that AI is actually working. And I think our customers' expectations, right, are constantly increasing. Right, there's these wonderful online providers out there that keep finding new ways to deliver a better customer experience. And they raise the bar for everybody, because that automatically becomes the thing that you expect to get the next time that you actually deal with other people. Right, so that bar keeps changing. So we're dealing with this incredibly complex set of processes that require a fairly significant amount of time to be able to deliver products to people. There's a dramatic range of people actually involved in the delivery or the execution of these supply chains. We've got enough difficulty at times actually just getting people in one organisation to collaborate, let alone the number of different organisations that now need to collaborate together to really optimise the supply chain. And I think I'll just finish with this sentence, right? The excellence we achieved yesterday, right, now becomes the expectation that our customers have tomorrow. And so that need to keep innovating, that need to keep improving, right, is fundamentally driving the competitiveness of organisations. Right, if a company doesn't think that way, No, I just
How
said
rude.
No, thank you. I'm very close.
Oh, it was very close.
Yeah.
Need to get that semiconductor under control.
Yeah. But it's that.
You're going to the naughty corner.
Take it out the door, yeah. So, customer experience, right. But again, it comes back to that. Supply chains fundamentally have to deliver that customer experience.
Kia ora.
And again, yesterday's excellence is tomorrow's expectation. Thank you for your time.